David Hertel in for Elias. We talked about this earlier this week. A recent Léger poll shows that 47% of Montrealers feel less safe than they did 5 years ago. But overall crime rates are down. So in spite of all this recent spike in violence, we've seen a lot of violent crime recently. So to explain the situation and what is being done at the city level, happy to be joined in studio. Yes, by Alain Vaillancourt. He is a city councilor for St. Henri in Vaillancourt, and he's also an executive committee member responsible for public security. Mr. Vaillancourt, thank you very much for joining us in studio this morning.
My pleasure, David. Happy to be in studio.
Yeah, it's great.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, and I love your reflex. Before you came on, you said, I'm just tired of doing these phone interviews.
Absolutely. I said, can I please go into the studio?
So it's just wonderful to have a human being in studio. So that's great. So I'll start off with a very general question. I mean, when you saw that Léger poll, as responsible for public security here in Montreal for the executive committee of the city, I mean, what was your reaction? What does that say about how Montrealers feel about their safety here in the city?
There's a lot in the poll. I would say I wasn't necessarily surprised. The good thing in the poll, I would say, is that, 3/4 of Montrealers do feel safe today in the city. I think what we take really seriously in the poll is that in the last 5 years, people feel less safe. That we take seriously. And everything we're doing on a daily basis is to address that fact, to ensure that Montrealers regain the confidence and the feeling of safety in the city. And also, the perception that Montreal isn't safe, in reality, you mentioned it at the beginning of the show, you look at all objective factors, the crime indices, the ratings. Montreal is actually the safest or one of the most safest cities in North America, if not in Canada. So
that's true.
So that's the reality, but we really take seriously the perception of what people feel in the city.
So 5 years, interesting coincidence. The Plante administration has been in power for 5 years. Why? What's happened? Why? How do you explain this loss of confidence?
I don't think it's one issue. I think, what I hear and one of the facts that's happening is the social media has a huge role to play, especially when we talk with the youth and the youth violence. We talk about the pandemic had a major role in what we're seeing in gun violence and other feelings of insecurity.
Mental health issues.
So I would say it's a variety of things that have come together to create the sense that, perhaps people feel it's less safe when in actual fact it is quite safe. But, to address the question of what we're doing, we do need to take it seriously. If you don't feel safe, that's an important thing we need to address. And we can't just look at it as far as one aspect, So the SPVM has a huge role to play in intervention, and I really want to highlight their work. They're doing exceptional work right now. I mean, in the last period of about 2 months, we've had 2 historic seizures for drugs and guns. Yesterday, we had an announcement that we made an arrest for a suspect in the Mariam Bendoui murder. So, I really want to take this opportunity to highlight the work they're doing. They're out there, they're active. And a lot of the work they're doing, we don't see. A lot of what is working is the gathering information, investigations, and the arrests. And that they are extremely active and still active today on other cases that should be coming out soon.
Speaking with Executive Committee member responsible for public security, Alain Vaillancourt. Mr. Vaillancourt, so we've been focusing a lot on the SPVM. And yes, police officers and focusing on guns. But when we're talking about violence, I mean, we have to talk about other issues as well.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are saying, well, yeah, okay, we're focusing on guns, and we've heard Mayor Plante talk about the federal government needing to do more, the provincial government needing to do more, and that's fair, okay, and they've stepped up. But at the same time, what about the root causes of violence? We talk about poverty, we talked about mental health. Now, again, I understand that it's not just the city's responsibility, but the city does have to play a role. So when you're talking about things to do, things need to be done, what is the city doing other than just talking about SPD?
Our highlights, it's not all a responsibility, but in a way, we need to take responsibility over it, even if it's not, because it's our city and our citizens live here. So a lot of our focus, I'm by trade, I'm a social worker. I've worked 23 years in the social work field before coming here. And a lot of the focus we're doing is on prevention. The root cause is, how do we get our young kids to take other choices rather than going into the violence, the aspect of violence? Just currently, this year we put about $5 million on the table that went out to all the boroughs. And there is, at this moment, over 70 different types of projects to deal with prevention in the different boroughs. For example, there's a specific program in the Southwest where I'm from that we're putting together that, along with the community and the schools, we're going to identify the youth that are at risk. We know the youth that are at risk in the schools through the teachers and community organizations. We're going to be identifying them. It's a voluntary program. We'll be accompanying the youth along with the parents and do an intervention plan with them to ensure that they get on the right path. So that's one example. And there's over 70 of those type of projects for street workers, prevention programs in schools, in the communities, that are right now being deployed across the city. And I know that's a main focus of our I would say, of our strategy as far as the root cause and trying to get kids out of the spiral of violence. We work a lot with the provincial government too. We work closely, and I see a change in the provincial government. I'm seeing a change that a lot of their focus is, yes, they're tough on crime, but I'm seeing a big change as far as prevention measures. Just recently they announced another $2 million for preventative measures in the city. There's big announcement coming for that. So I'm seeing a shift, and I think we have to go there. Otherwise, we're never going to get out of this spiral of violence with the youth, and that's where the key is.
Going back to the Léger poll, what I found very interesting is that the question about the perception of Montreal's security and safety when you go to Quebec City or you go outside Montreal in the regions, it actually goes higher. So we have an image problem, and that can have a direct impact on tourism dollars and just overall. And again, I'm agreeing with you in terms of the stats. We're safe, but again, to the perception issue, what is the city doing to talk to people? Because if you're outside Montreal, and you may think twice about coming to Montreal, and that's dollars that we need.
Well, Mayor Plante mentioned this morning at the executive committee, Montreal is bursting at the seams right now with events, with tourism. It's really picked up. So we need to give the message that Montreal is safe. You're right. And as far as the perception for Quebec, it's not a new thing. Quebec, I think if you go back, well in your past functions, you go back and the perception of Quebec City people versus Montreal, we can talk about traffic, we can talk about, you name it.
No, it's never been positive.
It's a lot less positive from the outside than it is from people living in the city. So, that's historic. Well, we still need to address the cause of that. So there will be and I think you're already seeing it. There's a huge effort right now to communicate all the good things that are happening as far as, the crime prevention we're doing, the resolution of the crime. We mentioned it this morning in the executive committee. Montreal right now has 92% of homicides in Montreal come to a resolution. You compare that to Toronto, which is about 60%.
Sure.
It's major,
It is.
So
it is.
When it does happen, we're very effective in coming to a conclusion of it, even though it could take time. It could take 11 months before. But coming back to the communication, it's our duty to So you'll see a lot of efforts this summer to make sure that we'll be out there. We're on the ground. I was in Rivière-des-Prairies just last week with the SPVM community organizations, doing door to door, reassuring people. We had media there to put out the message that despite the issues we're having in certain areas, Montreal is safe.
Good. Well, thank you very much. It's good to see a human being in the studio. Yeah.
It's a pleasure seeing you again. I mentioned before we came on air that we met, I think, 7 years ago.
Yes, we did.
In our borough when you were minister. So I still remember that. So
nice
to see you again.
It's great to see you again. Yeah. I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you coming on this morning to explain the situation. Very
appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Alain Vaillancourt, Executive Committee member responsible for public security. He's also a council member for Saint-Henri, more specifically Villemar.